Simon, what do you think about this issue as the greatest channel on YouTube? I feel like we should just get this absolutely out of the way at the beginning of this one. Smash that dislike button, and this video is going to have a higher than normal dislike ratio because, however you want to cut it, we're talking about some of Donald Trump's stranger businesses, and I'm sure there's a lot of, I've said this before on Business Blaze, I'm not American. I don't really care about your politics. And even when I say that, people are like, well, you should care about our politics. It affects the world. And I'm like, okay, it doesn't really affect me that much though. I'm generally one of those people who thinks that, politics is mostly, at least the way it's presented in the news, is mostly just entertainment, and it really probably doesn't affect you as much as you might think. Unpopular opinion, smash that dislike button. Let's carry on. And just to highlight their opinion, just my opinion, not fact or anything like that, but here we are, let's do this. Allegedly. If you are ever on the lookout for expert business advice from an experienced entrepreneur, you might be interested in checking out the long list of books written by American business tycoon Donald Trump. There are about 20 to choose from, with titles including The Art of the Deal, Surviving at the Top, How to Get Rich, The Way to Success, and Think Big and Kick Ass. I mean, I can see why people would buy these. These actually don't sound bad, and Donald Trump, however you want to cut it, is a pretty successful dude. He is the leader of the free world. Many of them have topped the bestseller charts, and Trump once claimed that The Art of the Deal was the #1 best-selling business book of all time. Given Donald Trump's reputation, I'm going to say that that might not be true. And someone could go, but like Donald Trump, it's objectively not, if it's not. And he'll be like, oh, it is. It just is. Other business books out there have sold over 15 times as many copies, but Trump's books do sell pretty well. And you naturally expect such tremendous figures from such a tremendously talented businessman. He doesn't write them himself, of course, because he can't. No, he can write. He can write. He obviously wouldn't have time for any of that nonsense. In fact, I'd be very surprised if he's even read half of them. But he's fairly open about the fact that he uses ghostwriters who occasionally get their name mentioned in small letters on the front cover, or at least a name check in the acknowledgement section. Now, yeah, I don't really have a problem with ghostwriters. I think a lot of people who are, not writers but want to have a book use ghostwriters. I just, where you sit down with them and you discuss the book and you go through everything and you give them a ton of notes and then they write a book that is essentially by you, if you could, write well. Like, I am absolutely terrible at writing, and if I did like an autobiography someday when I'm actually notable and old, I would definitely not write it myself because no one would like it, but I would sit down with someone who can actually write and have them put it together with me. Regardless of who was putting quill to paper, the fact is that Trump's name alone can often sell stuff by the KFC bucket load. Now I am hungry. And although we usually associate those 5 letters with real estate and skyscrapers and hotels and casinos and golf courses, and now the presidency, it turns out that his name crops up in a lot of unexpected places too. You might have noticed that I've missed out the small detail of his presidency of the United States of America. No, Danny didn't notice. But that's because we're dealing purely with his more bizarre business dealings in today's video. Yeah, it's true, this video isn't called Political Blaze. So, if you are a Trump supporter, rest assured that we're not going to get all political. Sam always cuts out those bits anyway. Yeah, there are bits where I'll just go on a bit of a rant about something. I'll be like, okay, that's just not going to be really popular, so I'll trim it down a bit. Chop chop! But before we move on to his stranger business ventures, I wouldn't mind just taking a very quick look at Donald Trump's business background and posing the question, is Donald Trump a good businessman? I wonder. I mean, I heard that he got a small loan of like $1 million and then he became a billionaire. So I'm like, well, that's quite impressive, but I don't really know much else. Don't really care. But we're gonna find out. I mean, I care so much. This video is the best. Enjoy it. He must have done something right, as he now has a net worth of somewhere between $2 billion and $10 billion, depending on who's asking at the time. I'm sure we all get a warm, fuzzy glow in our tummies when we hear of rags to riches stories, the joyous tales of entrepreneurs who started out with next to nothing and independently forged their own path to business success. Lord Alan Sugar The face of the UK version of The Apprentice started off selling radio aerials out of the back of a grotty van on his way to becoming a billionaire. Danny, don't judge his van. Maybe it was extremely clean. Why does it have to be grotty? Grotty vans sounds like a pedophile's van. Sir Richard, and all pedophiles have vans. Sir Richard Branson. Oh, I'm a big fan of Richard Branson. His books are amazing. They are worth reading. The man is an absolute legend. Sir Richard Branson was squatting, although his family were well middle class, I thought. Anyway, he was squatting in London flats and flogging Christmas trees and budgerigars, which are a type of bird, when he does. I feel like, yeah, maybe I'm stating the obvious there, but I feel proud that I know what a budgerigar is, because hell yeah. When he took the first steps to becoming one of the most successful and influential entrepreneurs of all time. Oprah Winfrey came from a brutal and poverty-stricken background and later worked her way up from local radio to become one of the wealthiest self-made women in America. I think she is the wealthiest self-made woman. Who would be richer than her? There's all the Waltons, but they are definitely not self-made. Donald Trump's story is a comment below. That's what it's for, because, you know, when I don't want to do my own research. Donald Trump's story is a little bit different. He recalls that he started out his career with a small loan of $1 million from his very rich father, Fred Trump. The New York Times reports that he actually borrowed closer to $60 million and never paid most of it back, while an additional $413 million was funneled into Donald's bank account from his father's empire over the years, in what were alleged to be schemes to channel Fred's wealth to his son rather than give it to the taxman. Still, every budding young entrepreneur deserves a little helping hand. A little bit more than a helping hand, isn't it, Danny? The truly astounding thing about Trump's business activities in the 80s and 90s was that at around the same time that he was... Oh, and of course, this is all allegedly, as reported by the New York Times. Maybe it happened, maybe it didn't. Who knows? Allegedly. The truly astounding thing about Trump's business activities in the 80s and 90s was that at around the same time he was not really writing books on how to become rich and successful, he was actually in deep financial turmoil for the best part of a decade. Between 1984 and 1994, Trump's tax returns show that he managed to lose $1.17 billion over this period, with 4 of his businesses ultimately declaring bankruptcy. The New York Times claims that year after year, Mr. Trump appears to have lost more money than nearly any other individual American taxpayer. But on the plus side, it did mean that Trump didn't have to pay taxes for years and years. Yeah, because he lost 1.7 billion. 1.17 billion, sorry. Big difference. There is a big difference. That's like $600 million. Yeah, also I do feel like when people say like, oh, Donald Trump's been bankrupted like however many dozens of times. It's not dozens, it's like, I don't know, a few times. Bankruptcy is often a strategic thing. It's not like the company completely went to shit. Is it? I don't know. I'm gonna stop talking. And there's no denying that Trump is now a very wealthy man, and while some of his business history is questionable, he does seem to have struck enormous success by simply creating an image of himself which can be licensed with lucrative results. His 14-year... Yeah, I really hope we get into Trump steaks, because watching the Trump steaks advert on YouTube was one of my greatest experiences ever. Trump steaks. His 14-year stint on the TV show The Apprentice, which reportedly earned him around $3 million an episode. Good Lord. That is impressive. It helped him to create a brand of Donald Trump which could be sold. So not only was he getting paid $3 million an episode, but also all of that made him look awesome and even more saleable, especially to the American people as a politician, apparently. Many real estate developments and brands and products now bear the name of Trump, despite the fact that he had barely anything to do with them other than license his name as some sort of seal of credibility. If anyone's looking to license real estate, like Whistler Towers, reach out to me. Because I love money and not doing work. So, you have to give him some credit for being able to turn around his business misfortunes and become a billionaire based on little more than a created persona. It could be argued that Donald Trump was essentially a disastrous businessman who hemorrhaged millions of dollars every year and yet became incredibly rich and successful just by claiming he was already rich and successful in the first place. You can see why he likes this strategy even now, because it clearly works for him. So the answer to my original question about whether Donald Trump is a good businessman is probably no, but yes, but no, but kind of. I would say, yeah, yeah, he kinda is. Of course, there's far more to the story than that, and Trump has obviously enjoyed many genuinely successful ventures over the years, but we don't want to go into the complete life story of Donald Trump. Jesus Christ, Danny, didn't we already? We're like 3.5 pages in. Otherwise, this video would end up being almost as long as one of his rambling press conferences. I'm just filming this video after he essentially told people, yeah, it could be a good idea to inject, detergent into your veins. And then it was like, no, I was joking. And I watched the original press conference, and it was like, well, okay, for number one, media, he's not exactly saying that. And number two, he said afterwards he was being sarcastic. Look, I'm a British person. We really do sarcasm. We have a very good sarcasm ability, and it didn't sound very sarcastic. Instead, we thought it would be more interesting to step outside of the casino and venture far beyond the last hole of the golf course to uncover some of the more unusual lines of business to have received the Trump treatment, and I see the first one we are talking about is Trump steaks. When it comes to steaks, I've just raised the stakes. Oh God, that is cringe.
Trump steaks are the world's greatest steaks, and I mean that in every sense of the word.
Claimed a confident Donald Trump back in 2007 when he first launched his own brand of gourmet steaks to a nation of beef lovers.
I understand steaks. It's my favorite food, and these are the best.
If you'd like to tuck into a Trump steak nowadays, I have to say I'm pretty hungry. I wouldn't say no. I hope you like your steak rare. I do. In fact, rare would be on the edge of being overcooked for me. I basically take the cow, cut the meat off, maybe show it the pan, not necessary, and feed it to me, because I am an animal. Yeah, I hope you like your steak rare, because these are now almost impossible to find. What's that got to do with me liking my steak rare? I'm definitely missing a joke and sounding like an idiot. Someone point out how stupid I am in the comments below. Like normal. Thank you. In fact, they were only widely available for around 2 months before the whole project was quietly consigned to the business slaughterhouse. Ba-da-bum-bum. As you might expect, Trump steaks weren't just ordinary steaks. They were tremendous steaks. In fact, they were marketed as the world's greatest steaks because of course they were. In every sense of the word. And you'd hope so at those prices. Exclusively available by mail order through the US retailer The Sharper Image and the QVC shopping channel. So QVC, I feel, is it known for expensive things? I thought it was known for you buy this one knife and we'll give you 17 extra knives for free. And this kitchen. It's like, okay, QVC, relax. The frozen meat was sold in bumper deluxe packages at a price which equated to about $50 per pound. Oh God, Imperial. I have no idea how much money that is, but 70% of people who watch this channel are Americans, so enjoy. For the rest of you 30%, and me, well, us. The starter package, or the classic collection, cost just under $200 for a couple of filet mignons, a couple of ribeyes, and a dozen burgers. That sounds extremely expensive.
That's why I'm thrilled they agree with me.
Filet mignon is, I know it's the most expensive, but it's probably one of my least favorite steaks. The ribeye is absolute great stuff. And who wants burgers? If I want burgers, I go to Tesco. So essentially, I'm getting 2 steaks that I quite like for $200 and some filet mignons, which I will eat, and a dozen burgers. I feel like we're just bulking it out with the cheap shit, aren't we, Trump? If you really felt like stocking up the freezer, you could plump for the high-end package, which contained 16 steaks and 24 burgers for just under $1,000. F***ing hell. I guess these are like steaks for rich people?
Exactly what I'm talking about.
$1,000! $1,000! Trump had originally trademarked the name Trump Steaks in 2006 before striking a deal with Atlanta-based specialty meat supplier Buckhead Beef to deliver the goods. Interestingly, Buckhead Beef had already been supplying food to Trump's casinos and restaurants in Atlanta, but at this point he owed them over $715,000 following one of his many troubled periods for Trump hotels, which had resulted in a bankruptcy filing. So it could be the case that the deal was largely an opportunity for Buckhead Beef to try and claw back some of the money from their client. Sadly, Trump Steaks never really caught fire, despite a huge launch campaign, which even involved Trump managing to promote them on The Apprentice sales were very disappointing. In fact, the CEO of the Sharper Image would later reveal that we literally sold almost no steaks. Oh no! Well, that's because they're insanely expensive. And also, I understand that Trump has this big image, he's a big American man who loves steak. But that doesn't mean he knows anything about steak. Why wouldn't I just buy my steak from a butcher? Like a normal person. Reviews of the world's greatest and probably most expensive steaks were very mixed too, with some reviewers claiming on the QVC website that they were edible but not particularly good, while the burgers were dismissed as nothing but grease. Well over half of the reviews on the website were classed as extremely negative. Oh, okay, so they're expensive and allegedly, according to these small selection of reviewers. Although you can technically still buy Trump-branded steaks when dining out at one of his many establishments, the boxed frozen products were later dropped after 2 months, and the trademark was cancelled after a few years. I'm not completely sure that Donald got the memo, though. While he was celebrating his latest primary victories at a news conference in Florida in 2006, Trump was showing off some of the many products that bear his name as a display of his phenomenal success in business over the years. The display included several packs of what he proudly referred to as Trump steaks, but they were actually steaks provided by a local butcher from West Palm Beach, whose branding was still clearly visible on the packaging. Just continue the lie. It's okay. If you stick with it strong enough, people will believe it. Like, I'm constantly saying that Business Blaze is the best channel on YouTube, and people have been reaching out to me, like the Washington Post, for comments. Like, Simon, what do you think about this issue as the greatest channel on YouTube? And I'm like, well, let me tell you, that doesn't really happen. But maybe it will someday, because this is the best channel on YouTube. Trump University. Back in 2005, Donald Trump had some tremendous news. I wonder how many times we're going to use tremendous in this episode. For budding, young real estate investors. Even if you were a completely hopeless loser, Trump had the power to turn you into a success. It's in a compelling commercial for the new Trump University. An opening voiceover revealed how the most celebrated entrepreneur on earth was ready to share his investment secrets. So Richard Branson is going to be sharing his investment. Oh, I see, it's a joke. Trump himself declared in the commercial that he had handpicked the university's instructors, and his final words to camera were, I can turn anyone into a successful real estate investor, even you. And then off camera he probably says, you knobbo. Oh, the idea was first dreamed up by an associate, Michael Sexton, who originally envisioned an online training program and simply wanted to pay Trump a stack of money for the privilege of being able to slap his name all over it. It sounds like that, which Paul brother was it? Was it Jake Paul who released the course on how to be rich? And it was just like, yeah, someone paid you to use your name, Jake. Makes you look like a bit of a tool, doesn't it? However, Trump seemed to get excited about the thought of running his own university and decided that he wanted to be the principal owner. The project soon expanded. Can you just call something a university? If I was like, yeah, I'm starting a university, don't I have to get some sort of certification or some shit? You can't just be, you need like a .ac.uk email address or whatever American, a .edu. Because if not, I want to start my own university so I can get Adobe for cheaper. The project was soon expanded to incorporate live classes, courses, and seminars, which the marketing world would lead you to believe led to graduate programs, postgraduate programs, and doctorate programs. It was also hinted that Trump himself was often in town and might just drop in to say hello during one of your university lectures. Surely this can't be real. And I mean, all of those places where you can isn't it the University of what? Maybe that's a real university, I don't know, I probably shouldn't name them. But I swear there's some big online university which is where you just buy a degree and it's fake. Is that still a thing? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you want a Business Blaze on that. Maybe I should purchase myself a doctorate in something. I refer myself as Dr. Whistler, which would be good. And my family would finally be proud of me because they're all doctors. Oh! The main problem with Trump University is that it wasn't actually a university at all, and it had no authority to grant students gradings or degrees. I thought so. You can't just be like, it's a university, when it's not. As early as the launch year in 2005, the New York State Education Department warned Trump that his so-called university was breaking the law for operating without a license. Sadly for the students, none of them ever got the privilege of meeting the great man himself. Wasn't there a lawsuit around this? I guess we're going to get to it. Although attendees at one particular seminar were clearly promised that they would get to all have their photograph taken with him at the end. But it turns out that the instructors were actually just referring to a giant cardboard cutout of Trump. It'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna be at this big YouTube event. Come meet your boy. And it'd just be like a cardboard cutout, be like, and I'd still be wildly popular somehow and become president. What is going on? Whistler 2020. But then again, it's not as if Trump had that much to do with the seminars anyway. Despite his earlier claims of hand-picked instructors, he later admitted in court that, there was a legal case then, that he didn't choose any of them, nor did he ever review any of the curricula or programming materials or techniques and strategies that were taught. That was all done via a third-party content provider. So he kind of just slapped his name on it, really, didn't he? In fact, the whole thing was later exposed as nothing more than a classic bait and switch. Real universities tend to have fairly strict admission standards, but all you needed to enroll in Trump University was a healthy bank balance. Candidates were invited to a completely free introductory seminar during which they were aggressively encouraged to sign up for a 3-day course at a cost of $1,495. Shit, son, that's like $500 a day. And it's like those courses you buy online that I have YouTube Premium, so I don't get any of these adverts, and I don't really watch Make Money Online videos, but apparently there'll be, other than Raid Shadow Legends advertising throughout this video, in the mid-rolls, it'll be, I make $100,000 a month on Amazon FBA. And it's like, so why are you selling a course for $1,000 then, you knob? Someone will see adverts for that after this. Don't buy that for God's sake. And subscribe to CoffeeZilla, which is a channel that just, Steven, the guy on the channel, just spends his life destroying these dudes, and it's hilarious. It's like what Business Blaze would be if, we were providing a public service other than just ripping into people. I'll link to it below if I remember. And during the 3-day course, they were largely just encouraged to sign up for the Gold Elite program to learn all the real juicy business secrets at a cost of $35,000. Oh, okay, that's not a joke. I'll be like, I paid you $1,495. You're not gonna give me all the juicy business secrets? What the f***? Just buy books, people. They're like $4 on Amazon in ebook form. Just buy a goddamn book. It's all in the books. And a former Trump employee testified that Trump University was a fraudulent scheme which was only interested in selling every person the most expensive seminars that they possibly could. Naturally, Trump denied all of this and claimed that Trump University was a terrific school that did a fantastic job. He also vowed that he would not be settling the lawsuits against him because he was Donald Trump, and Donald Trump never settled lawsuits. He fought them and won. After Trump University closed its doors for the last time in 2010, Donald Trump agreed to pay a $25 million settlement for the lawsuits. Next up, Trump Beverages. One of the most successful acquisitions in recent years was the purchase of a winery estate. I think I'm right in saying that Donald Trump doesn't drink. He's sober, right? Or like teetotal, or I don't know if he had I don't think he had a problem, he just doesn't drink. Oh, but that shouldn't stop business! The Cloche Estate Winery and Vineyard, located in the Piedmont region of Virginia, was established in 1999 by Patricia Cloche, the ex-wife of American billionaire John Cloche. And now I realize that I should probably know how to pronounce that name because I guess they're notable. Who cares? Following the divorce in 1990, Patricia had naturally ended up with quite a bit of money. But she's also alleged to have burned through most of it quite quickly. Although she had grand plans to expand the 1,300-acre estate, she eventually had to give up the property in 2011 when she defaulted on a $65 million loan. Holy sh**. And the banks foreclosed on the estate, enabling Trump to snap it up pretty quick-like. Trump had actually been very good friends with Patricia Cloche, who had originally put the property up for sale $100 million when she first faced financial difficulties. Some friend, I want $100 million, I'll give you 65. But Trump was happy to wait until the banks foreclosed so that he could get it into his hands for the bargain price of $3.6 million. Oh no. Oh no, it was a $65 million loan she defaulted on, and he got it for 3.6. Oh shit. Patricia probably doesn't invite Don to Christmas dinner anymore, if she did in the first place. I don't know. But obviously that probably caused a rift in their friendship. In a burst of creativity, Trump decided to give the winery a new name. After chewing it over for several months, he finally settled on Trump Winery. It's now run by his son Eric, and Trump Winery is doing pretty good business. Trump's claim that he owns the largest winery on the East Coast might be completely made up. At least two other wineries in Virginia produce about twice as much wine, but Trump Winery is producing 36,000 cases of wine per year and has scooped prestigious awards and gold medals at international wine competitions. Okay, that's pretty good. I'll try this. It's certainly a lot more successful than his earlier foray into the alcoholic drink market in 2005. Trump Vodka was one of those situations where Trump effectively just licensed his name to a relatively small penny stock company called Drinks Americas, with the most creative name in the world. So they could produce bottles of vodka with his name all over them. In exchange, Trump demanded half the royalties, with a minimum of $2 million to be expected within the next 3 years. That doesn't sound like a lot of money for him to be interested. It's like, yeah, I need $2 million over 3 years. That sounds like a lot of money for a normal person. But it's 2005, he's super rich. It'd be like someone coming to me, Simon, we want to pay you $20, and I'll be like, okay, great. Trump did, however, get involved in the design of the glass bottle, which was crafted to resemble one of his skyscrapers and decorated in gold leaf labels. Sounds classy. Unfortunately, this was to prove one of the biggest problems with the product. The glass and gold leaf labeling were so expensive that Trump vodka could never be produced in very high numbers. Trump also got involved in the marketing campaigns and eventual launch parties, helping to promote the tantalizing slogan, "Success Distilled." Oh, that is weak, isn't it? Don Draper needs to get on that. He predicted that within a year after the launch, Trump and Tonic would become the most requested cocktail in the whole of America. We can all dream, can't we? But it didn't quite work out that way. Sadly, sales of the drink proved to be disappointing, and the US plug was eventually pulled in 2011, although it's still sold in Israel. What? Where it's particularly popular during Passover, as it meets the Jewish holiday's dietary laws. Yeah, but I mean, surely there's plenty of other drinks that aren't Trump vodka that meet the dietary laws of Passover. Perhaps part of the problem was that a bottle of Trump vodka was more expensive than most of its established high-end competitors, but you'd seem to be paying more for the fancy glass bottle rather than the quite ordinary vodka inside. The manufacturing of the bottles had thrown up all kinds of other problems too. At one point, the supplier, Bruni Glass, had 500,000 raw bottles ready to be shipped, but they were getting a bit grumpy over Trump's unpaid bills. Running theme. They resorted to throwing all 500,000 bottles into a furnace. I hope they collected the gold afterwards. Gold, please. But perhaps the biggest problem of all was that vodka was never going to be a product very close to Donald Trump's liver, because he's a teetotaler who despises alcohol and drunkenness. He blames alcohol for the early death of his older brother, Fred Trump Jr. Oh, that's sad. I didn't know his brother was dead. Although he is really old. So, it was always going to be harder for Trump to get fully behind the product that he would never dream of touching. And in a lame defense for selling something of which he doesn't even approve, Trump simply explains that if he didn't sell it, somebody else would. It's like, yeah, heroin, if I didn't sell it, someone else would. Crack. Meth is what Walter White says. Yeah, well, if I didn't make this huge quantity of high-quality crystal meth, someone else would, and they'd probably make it in Mexico, wouldn't they? It's not a good excuse. Let's just pause for a moment to ponder how Donald Trump might behave if he ever got drunk, and then quickly move on. He should have maybe stuck to selling water or something. It shouldn't be too hard to stick his face on cheap plastic bottles of water, label it as premium water, and charge over the odds for every bottle. I'm pretty sure he did this, and I can see where we're going. Oh, wait a minute, he did that too. Danny and I, same page. Trump Ice Natural Spring Water, or just Trump Ice for short, was initially just available at Trump establishments, but the product eventually landed in US shops in 2003. Trump claims that this was because the water was so good that people wanted to buy cases of it. It was apparently the purest, best tasting water you can imagine. It's like, yeah, I always think about what's the best tasting. It tastes like water, Don. It's water. So Trump's face got stuck onto very expensive plastic bottles of water with oddly fiery red packaging, which seemed to work against the ice-cold nature of the product. Trump Ice received an extra $1 per promotion when it was featured on an early episode of The Apprentice, in which competitors had to try and sell the new product to distributors. It seems like, oh yeah, just I'll get my TV show guys to do the work for me. But one guy who wasn't very taken with the water was Sylvester "Sly" Stallone. The movie star had recently launched his own brand of water called Sly Water and was invited by Access Hollywood to take a blind test of the two bottles of water. One of them was Sly Water and the other turned out to be Trump Ice, although Sly wasn't aware of it at the time. Sly managed to correctly identify his own brand and declared that the other brand wasn't fit to wash his socks in. Well, of course, but he's also biased. Someone else who probably wasn't a fan was a Republican rival candidate for the presidency, Marco Rubio. During his 2013 State of the Union rebuttal to President Barack Obama, it had been reported that a perspiring Marco Rubio had made a rather awkward fumble for a glass of water. And this had not gone unnoticed by Trump, who publicly lambasted Marco for being too sweaty. What? Come on, where did the decency in politics go? I was watching, it came up on my homepage the other day. It was like George W. Bush, his press conference or announcement in like the Rose Garden of the White House after he found out that Barack Obama had won the presidency. And it is like the most dignified, nice thing you've ever seen. And it's like, what happened to that? And do you remember we used to not like? People were like, George W. Bush, he doesn't seem very nice. As a fun prank, Trump posted a care package to Marco containing 24 bottles of Trump Ice and a little note reading, "Since you're always sweating, we thought you could use some water. Enjoy." Sick burn? No. The only way to enjoy Trump Ice now is when you're getting served at one of Trump's fine establishments, as the range was eventually pulled from shops probably at around the same time the customers cottoned onto the fact that they were getting charged a fortune for cheap plastic bottles of ordinary water with Trump's face Wait, was his face on it as well? Did we mention that? Why? That's very strange. And it would be very ironic if I was wearing my t-shirt with my face on it today. But yeah, I retract my statement. Nothing else to be said there. We probably shouldn't read too much into the fact that it's still getting served in Trump's hotels and restaurants and casinos. It's probably not even the same product that was sold in the shops, it's just practically everything on the menu has got the word Trump in front of it. Trump Shuttle. Is this please be something to do with the space shuttle? I know it's not gonna be, but it'd be cool if he paid to have a space shuttle named after him. I know he didn't, because we'd know about that, wouldn't we? Finally. It's almost inevitable that a businessman as successful as Donald Trump would eventually get around to launching his own airline. That's exactly what he did with the short-lived Trump Shuttle in 1989. Just a quick reminder that this was about halfway through the period when the most tremendous businessman that has ever lived was losing millions of dollars every year. Eastern Airlines were facing financial difficulties at this point, and in 1988, a workers' strike had practically ground the airline to a halt. However, Trump managed to raise $365 million from a consortium of 22 banks to purchase the struggling airline's Eastern Shuttle service, which provided quick flights between New York, Boston, and Washington. It's super interesting how, like, for a business purchase, you get like a consortium of banks. They'd be like, yeah, I really want to get a mortgage for a house, but the banks, they're not really very helpful. So I got 22 of them together to finally let me buy a property. I mean, given like the state of the UK's housing market and how expensive all that is, maybe that's the future. Just get a consortium of banks so you can finally afford a house, young people. It's a little bit sad. Trump's new fleet, naturally rebranded as the Trump Shuttle, consisted of 21 Boeing 727s, and Trump spent an additional $1 million on each plane to add a bit of glitz and flair to every flight. Trump was clearly excited at the press conference launch, announcing that we are the first plane out this morning. We were the most successful flight this morning. We had more people than anybody else, and I think we had better service than anybody else. It's amazing, isn't it? But quite bizarrely, he spent most of the conference taking potshots at Pan Am, his nearest competitor in the shuttle service, instead of promoting the benefits of his own airline. He even went as far as to break the unwritten rule in the airline industry, attacking the safety record of a competitor. Well, if your airline's like brand new, it's like, we've had no crashes. Mr. Trump, you've had one flight. Shut the f*** up! One flight, one successful flight. It was a perfect record. We have a perfect record. Trump claims that Pan Am was so strapped for cash that they couldn't even afford to maintain their aircraft to an acceptable safety level. I'm pretty sure that can't be the case because, there's laws. Following the conference, Trump was warned by his airline's own marketing director never to pull a stunt like that again. But Trump would soon be eating his own words anyway. The very same year, one of his shuttles was forced into making an emergency landing in Boston when the Boeing 727's front landing gear malfunctioned. The potential tragedy was only averted thanks to the heroic and skillful maneuvering of the pilot. Trump would later describe it as the most beautiful landing you've ever seen. And in a bid to subdue media reaction to the story, he personally flew on the next Trump shuttle flight to prove his confidence in his own service. Of course, the 90s proved to be a difficult time for the aviation industry as a whole, as the Gulf War sent oil prices surging alongside an economic recession in the northeast of the US, which reduced customer demand. I feel like that's some really specific economic knowledge to know if you weren't really paying attention to the business news. And yeah, it's like, obviously the northeast of the US had a recession which reduced demand. Of course. How did I not know? Everyone knows that. Already saddled with enormous debt, it became very clear that the Trump shuttle couldn't survive in the current climate. By 1992, the service had been sold to US Air, and eventually evolved into the US Airways Shuttle. But Trump still seemed reasonably happy with the way things had turned out. Following the sale, he claimed, "I'm smart. I got out at a good time. I made a few bucks." It's estimated that he personally lost $120 million from the failure. Oh, although Trump can't be blamed for the Gulf War, critics have argued that his whole approach to running an airline was flawed from the very beginning. His idea had been to turn a simple, no-frills service into a luxury Trump-branded service with gold-plated safety buckles and leather seating. But spending $1 million on pimping out each plane seemed like a massive waste of money, bearing in mind that these flights were effectively just very short hops. Customers were more interested in a reliable and punctual service than super fancy seating. It's like, yeah, also, it's like, oh wow, a leather seat, but my knees are rammed against the seat in front of me. Priorities, guys, priorities. What I'm doing on a short-haul flight is getting on the plane and then hoping as quickly as possible I can get off the plane. At one point, Trump had insisted on the installation of marble sinks in his planes until it was pointed out that they're a bit too heavy. He did get his way with the installation of ultra-thick burgundy carpet on the floors, despite the fact that the attendants were finding it impossible to move their trolleys across such a thick and impractical flooring. Trump is alleged to have advised them to just push harder. Perhaps the real flaw with the Trump shuttle is that it was being run by a man with absolutely no experience or knowledge of how to run an airline. Let's just hope that later in life he managed to find a job a bit more suited to his extraordinary portfolio of skills. But what will happen when President Trump reaches the end of his term in office? Some speculate that he'll just go straight back to business and pick up where he left off, but it could be trickier than he imagines. Trump's business successes have always been rooted in his undeniable talent to persuade customers that his products and services are associated with luxury, prestige, and high-end glamour. To me, they are kind of associated with kitsch rather than glamour. It's a bit too much gold. It's a bit too much of his face on the product. But that's just me. But it's possible that the mask has, I feel high-end in Britain isn't clothes with labels on them. It's less ostentatious. But it's possible that the mask has slipped during his presidency, and Trump's image has taken a bit of a battering following the intense media scrutiny of his business affairs. Many consumers are now happy to admit that they purposefully boycott Trump-branded products, and even his most successful casinos and restaurants have seen a dramatic decline in recent years. So it could be the case that when Trump returns to the arena of business, he'll find that the value of his brand has taken a huge hit while he was playing at being president. And this is an interesting one, because either way, if you run for president, if Oprah runs for president, by the time you're done, 40% of the American population are gonna hate you. Whether you run as a Democrat, the Republicans will hate you. If you run as a Republican, the Democrats will hate you. It's just gonna happen. So it does seem like a really good way to make a lot of people not like you. Michael Bloomberg runs for president, and then afterwards everyone's like, yeah, that guy's a bit of a dick. And it's like, Michael Bloomberg is, compared to Trump, it's like a different level of success. And he was just very, good mayor, good political record, always won an election. Now it's like, Michael Bloomberg, right? But the guy's mad successful. But now, don't run for president if everyone's gonna hate you. Sorry, a lot of people are gonna hate you, no matter what. Still, I'm sure he has time to start again from scratch. Does he? He's really old. Maybe one day in the not too distant future we'll see him flogging Trump radio aerials, Trump Christmas trees, Trump budgerigards from out of the back of his grotty old Trump van. Oh my god, this was so long that that reference feels like a long time ago. This has been Business Blaze. I'm sure that if you've watched this long and smashed that dislike button, you are hate watching. But it's okay. Thank you for watching to the end and giving me all that sweet, sweet watch time. It's appreciated. And yeah, if you did enjoy it, smash that like button, subscribe, all of that good stuff. My plugging is over, and thank you for watching.
With fantastic products of all kinds. That's why I'm thrilled they agree with me.